To use motion blur in Capcut, start by opening your project and selecting the clip you want to apply the effect to. Motion blur is a powerful tool that can add a sense of speed and dynamism to your videos. And Capcut makes it easy to use. First, go to the Effects tab and search for motion blur. Capcut offers several motion blur effects, including a basic motion blur and more advanced options like zoom blur and rotation blur. Choose the effect that best fits your needs and drag it onto your selected clip. Once you have applied the motion blur effect, you can adjust its settings to fine-tune the look. The key settings to pay attention to are the blur amount and the blur direction. The blur amount controls how intense the blur is, while the blur direction determines the direction of the blur. To get the best results, experiment with different blur amounts and directions to find the look that works best for your clip. You can also use the preview window to see how the effect looks in real time. In addition to adjusting the blur amount and direction, you can also use keyframe animation to make the motion blur effect more dynamic. This allows you to change the blur amount and direction over time, creating a more complex and interesting effect. When using motion blur, it is also important to consider the context of your clip. For example, if you are applying motion blur to a clip of a car moving quickly, you will want to use a horizontal blur direction to emphasize the motion. On the other hand, if you are applying motion blur to a clip of a person jumping, you may want to use a vertical blur direction to emphasize the upward motion. By following these steps and experimenting with different settings, you can use motion blur to add a professional touch to your videos in Capcut. Remember to keep your effects subtle and tasteful, as overusing motion blur can be distracting and detract from the overall impact of your video. With practice and patience, you can master the use of motion blur in Capcut and take your video editing skills to the next level.